Hello, how's it going? I'm Matt and welcome back to SuperCard Models. This is my channel where I'm scratch building a 1/5 scale R34 GTR Nissan Skyline. So what I did last week was I designed and built a bunch of internal structural parts for the front of the car like this. And what I want to do today is carry on designing and building a bunch of parts like that, but for the rear part of the car for here. Okay, but the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few tweaks to these big side parts that run down each side of the car. Now, if you saw last week's video, you'll know that I've done that process to these side parts already a few times, but basically they're such big, key, kind of important main parts of the model build that they have to be right? Like as my design evolves and as I kind of like refine the shape and the size of those pieces, I'll probably have to cut them a bunch more times. It's just got to be done. Basically, I still haven't got the position of these slots right. So this first slot here, if you imagine a piece that I'm going to make hopefully later in this video will kind of slot down sideways like that into the model. It'll kind of intrude a little bit too far into the interior space here, so I need to move that slot back a little bit out of the way. And this second slot here, I've accidentally kind of made that coincide exactly with where the rear axle will be. So at some point in the future, I'll probably have a rear axle running through the car that the wheels will attach to, and I don't want that axle to kind of run into a piece of foam board that's in the way. So that one there will have to get moved back a bit as well. That one's probably okay, I might just leave that one, but this slot here is probably not going to be needed. And that's because I've kind of evolved the design in my mind now to not have the back of the car kind of have the profile of the rear bumper and a little housing for the tail like this. What I'm thinking now is I might do something similar to what I've done on the front of the car, and that's basically build these big tabs into the assembly like this. And that is so that I can assemble the front bumper as a complete unit off the car and then just kind of slide it on over those tabs. So I'm thinking I'll do the same kind of idea or the same kind of design at the back. And these pieces that I'll make that'll run like this lengthways through the rear of the car will have the tabs kind of built into the back as well for the rear bumper to fit onto. So yeah, I'll jump into my Illustrator file now, make all those tweaks, print out a set of plans, cut some new parts, and I'll do that all off camera because, as I say, you saw me do that a few times last week. So I'll see you very shortly. All right, good. So that's recut, remade those big side parts, all ready to go. I don't think I'll fit them to the model just yet. What I want to do now is actually jump into Illustrator and start drawing up the designs that I have in mind for these rear structural parts. To give you a bit of an idea of the design that I'm thinking of for this rear section, I think I might have like sort of 3 bits that run lengthways like this. Actually very, very similar to what I've done on the front here with these 3 lengthways running parts, but just have it like that. So the front edge will have a tab built into the bottom of it that will sit into slots that I will cut into the chassis. So I have to work out the position of those as well. But if you imagine those kind of sitting there like that, and then interlocking with those and utilizing these slots that I built into these side pieces will be a bunch of pieces running across the car like that, and they'll kind of like slot in and sit all together, making a really strong, solid structure. So yeah, something like that anyway. So yeah, I can see it in my mind, but until I draw up the parts and do a first cut and see how it all fits together, I don't know if it'll actually work out. So let's find out. So yeah, there we go, that's the first version of those parts all drawn up. And I think they look pretty good. Yeah, but like it's impossible to know until I've actually printed them out, cut them out of foam board and fitted them to the model as to whether I've drawn them up the right size, or even whether my like design for how everything should fit together is going to work or not, whether there's some like kind of flaw that I haven't thought about yet. So yeah, let's print them out now, cut them out by hand, and yeah, I can start assembling stuff. Actually, the very first thing I need to do is print out a little guide, little chassis guide for where to put the slots for those pieces to sit into, overlay that over the top of the chassis, and cut out the slots carefully, and then those pieces can slot into the chassis nicely. So let's do that. Jeep, as you can tell, it's getting a bit late here because my cutting starts to get a little bit sloppy, but that's all right. One tip I wanted to share was that I keep my big sheets of foam board, like the offcuts from where I've cut other parts out, and I use those to cut out smaller parts from. Just kind of saves on wastage. But yeah, I'll carry on, finish cutting out these 3 smaller rear section structural parts, and then I can do a test fit of those on the car. Let's do it. All right, good. So I've just finished cutting out those 3 parts. Now let's see if they fit on the car. right, success. So they look really, really good. The next part I'll design will probably be one of those ones that goes all the way across the car like this and fits nicely down into that first row of slots. But the center section will kind of go all the way down, and the bottom will have a tab that fits into that slot that I've designed there. So there'll be like a series of parts like that, one for each row of slots, all the way down towards the back of the car. But yeah, I'll start with this first one at the front here. So yeah, I'll get into Illustrator and start drawing up that part. So it's next night, and you've just seen me finish drawing that piece there up. And just as a bit of a reminder, that piece is hopefully going to go and kind of slot down into there a bit like that. One other change that I just made in my Illustrator file was I made this slot here just quite a bit deeper. I think I made it go down to about here kind of thing, so that more of this part will actually like fit over these two pieces just to make it stronger. You can see that this slot here is just a little bit kind of small, a little bit too, a little bit too shallow. So I've got to print out a template from my Illustrator file, lay it over the top of this as a bit of a guide, and recut that slot deeper. So I'll do that now too. Because that's the first time that I've drawn this piece, I'm not totally sure if it's going to fit or not. So what I might do is just print it out on paper, cut it out of paper and do a test fit with the paper piece first, just kind of before I go to the effort to cut it all out of foam board and see if it fits and make any tweaks, and then I'll cut it out of foam board after that. So I'll keep cutting. Slightly annoyingly, that's just a bit too big to fit on one A4, so I have to tie that across too, but that's okay. Here's this part cut out of paper, and I also just lengthened these two slots here from these parts. So what I'll do is I'll put these back into the car, just fit them back in. Cool, it's that one. And put this one back in too. Good, and now I can take this and I can just do a quick test and see if it's going to fit or not. It's a bit harder than it will be with foam board, of course, because the paper's not quite as strong. But I can just get that bit sitting right. I think it's at least enough to give me a good impression about whether I've got the sizing right. And I think everything looks pretty good. yeah, I think it's going to be okay. Good. I think that's given me enough confidence to just go ahead and cut that part out of foam board, so I'll do that now. Here's the part cut out of foam board. Let's fit it to the model. Awesome, so that part's really good. Fits perfect, I reckon. You can see how I've designed it, that like this outer edge comes out, ties into the outer section of the car, and then it extends out a little bit to kind of start creating the profile of the upper top edge of the rear quarter panel. So it does that on both sides. Yeah, that's really, really good. And it just ties, you can see how it ties all these pieces together and makes it really, really strong. I think it was a good idea making the slot a little bit longer as well. So just, yeah, that's all really strong now too. Good. The next piece I'll do, I think, is the next one along that fits into this row of slots. And it will basically be exactly the same as this, I think, like the top section of it anyway. I'll just remove this part in my plans file, and it should fit basically straight in, or maybe just tweak the size of the slots a little bit as well. But yeah, I'll go into my Illustrator file, draw up that part quickly and cut it out, and then we'll fit that one. Nice, so there's that next piece drawn up. I'll do what I did with the last part and just cut it out of paper first, and then I can do like a test fit on the car, make sure I've actually drawn it up correctly and all the sizings and the spacings of everything just right. And if that looks good, then I'll cut it out of foam board, so I'll do that now. This piece just fits on a single A4 sheet, which is quite nice. It's just a little bit easier to cut out than if I have to tie it across multiple sheets. Okay, so I fitted up my paper test cut, and it's pretty good, but there is one small issue, and can you see what that is? Basically at this point here, this slot, at this point of the car, it's only like one single piece of foam board thick, whereas the slot that I've kind of retained from this piece here, because I basically based this piece off that, that slot is still like 2 pieces of foam board wide, so I just need to narrow that down to a single piece of foam board wide. And then everything else should fit fine. Cool, so that's an easy tweak to that part in my Illustrator file, which I'll do now, and then I'll cut it out of foam board. We can fit that piece to the car. Yeah, so that piece looks good too. I'm pretty happy with that. There is one small change that I might make in my Illustrator file though, and that's just to kind of make it a bit deeper, a bit thicker. When I was fitting it in a couple of places, it kind of wanted to bend a little bit because it's kind of a bit thin. So yeah, in my Illustrator file, I'll just make the piece a bit taller. I don't need to recut it and refit it right now, but next time I come to recut and refit all these pieces together, it can just be a little bit stronger then. But for now, I'm pretty happy with that. So yeah, the next piece to do, I guess, is probably the part that fits across this last row of slots like this. And again, it's probably going to be very, very similar to the top section or the same as this piece here. Just a little bit kind of deeper to fit these taller slots. So yeah, I'll get busy in Illustrator and draw that part up now. Okay, so it's the next night, and I've just been thinking about this last piece for this last row of slots. And I actually don't think there's any real need for it to be any different from this piece here. Like I can literally just make this exact piece, cut another one of those, and put it in there, and that should do the job. But I'll probably need to just tweak my Illustrator file so that the height of these slots is exactly the same as this one here. I won't need to recut this piece just yet. It just means that the file will be ready to go and accurate and correct next time I come to cut these parts on the next time that I build this model. So yeah, I'll jump into Illustrator, tweak the height of those, print out one of these and cut it out, and then I can fit it in and we'll be good to go. Great, so that's all good. Other than the height of these slots being incorrect, of course, but as I mentioned just now, I'll tweak that in my Illustrator file so that's correct for the next time I cut these parts. The height of the slots for all of these pieces at the back needs to be just shortened up a bit, but otherwise, that's fine. Okay, good. So next what I'll probably do is design a similar piece for down the front of the car. This is the front end of the car now. And what I've designed in my mind for here is basically something very, very similar to what I've just done down the back. So it'll be like a rectangle of foam board that will kind of slide down into those slots and just kind of connect all of these pieces together, making them nice and strong, and just setting the distances between each so that they can't move or anything like that. And the edge will probably extend out and create the profile of the front edge of the front guard on both sides like that as well. So yeah, should be pretty straightforward. Anyway, I'll jump into Illustrator, start drawing up that part, and I'll check in with you shortly. Sweet, so that's done a first drawing of that piece. Just kind of ignore the fact that I've got like the guide image displayed in the background. I wasn't actually using that as a guide for this part here. That it just happened to be visible in the background, but you can see that I've drawn up this part. So usual story, I print it out on my A4 printer, cut it out of foam board, and we'll see if it fits. Another one of those pieces that comes tantalizingly close to fitting on one A4 sheet, but it doesn't quite fit, so I have to tile that out over two. That's okay. I think I might just do a test fit with this paper cutting guide piece. Yeah, let's put that in first and see if it fits. It actually looks like the position of this slot isn't quite right. It needs to go that way a little bit. As you can see, this piece is just, yeah, it's not sitting right. And same on the other side. So I might actually make a tweak, check my measurements in my Illustrator file, and reprint a new version. You know what? I found out what the problem is. That piece is actually fine, like I've drawn that up all good. But if you see that little slot down there, that the tab for the front end of this kind of main side bit sits into on the chassis, I'd drawn that up in the wrong position on my plan. Basically, I've made it in line with this kind of outer piece to line up with that, rather than to line up with this inner piece, which meant that when I put this in to the slot, it was just 5 millimeters too far that way, and the same on the other side, which meant that it pushed that measurement out as well. So I'm going to have to go and just tweak my Illustrator plan file, tweak the position of that slot in the chassis piece plan, and I'm going to have to just kind of retrospectively cut the right position for those slots for that piece and that piece, and then when this piece sits down into the right place, that will go in nicely. So I'll go and do that now. All right, good. So I've recut that slot in the correct position. And what I also did was I just kind of like made and glued in a little filler piece to make the slot the right size again. Good, so I just need to do the same thing to the other side. Now let's find out if this piece is gonna fit. Nice, yes, that part's all good, all fits well. The only thing is it was a little bit hard to kind of push it into place. Like I think I need to just slightly widen my slots a little bit so that it will go in just a little bit easier. But other than that, it's fine. And you can see how this part here is going to start creating the profile of the front edge, the front forward edge of the guard, the front guard. So yeah, that should work out well. I'll probably have to do a bit of refinement to that in time, but for now, that's a good place to start with. Awesome. Okay, that's a wrap for this one. I've made really good progress on all those internal structure parts. Really happy with how that's coming together. Now I'm about to get busy designing and building the first kind of iteration of the roof structure part. So it'd be great to see the car with some roof structure parts. I think you really start to see the shape and overall form of the car start to come together. So check out next week's video to find out how I go with building the roof. So yeah, thanks for watching. It's exciting to see the build come together, and yeah, keep following along. I'll see you in the next one.